Gamers, do not summon on the Herta. Or maybe you should summon on her. So guys, in today's video, we'll be going over all the reasons on why you should or should not be summoning for the Herta. Not Herta, the small doll version of the Herta, the one that Rexlin probably prefers over any other character in this game. We're talking about the mommy today, guys, because she can offer you a lot of different things to your account, though I do think she has some flaws in her kit and flaws with her as well. And the first thing that I want to talk about in today's video, guys, is something that applies to almost every single person that plays this game, but especially free-to-play players. She is the free-to-play queen. Now, why do I say she's the free-to-play queen, right? Because she has a true free-to-play team. Almost. So guys, what I mean by this is she basically has the truest free-to-play units in the game. Because in the majority of situations, guys, her main team is going to be DPS, sub DPS, support, and then you have your sustain character here, right? Now, what categories does this fill into, right? Obviously, in this situation, you would have the Herta, right? So that already goes ahead and clears your DPS category. What are we going to do for sub DPS? You actually get Herta for completely free. And also, Herta works extremely well with the Herta. With the amount of time she's able to attack, that's very good. With the amount of enemies she's hitting, that's very good. And then also, she has a pretty solid follow-up attack that hits every single enemy as well. It can help clear up some enemies on the field and give you some extra stack whenever you're hitting the enemy below 50% HP. This is just an extra little kicker that you're going to be getting for your the Herta to do more DPS. For support, who do we have? New Remembrance Trailblazer, guys. Honestly, this is not as good, but does come pretty close to what Robin can do on this team. Robin is still better on this team, but this is still a very solid option to run on this team. Now, I will say this does come with its own caveats, which we'll talk about in the con section later in this video, and why I think she could maybe be bad for your account. But let me just continue the glaze right now, right? And finally, this is why I put the almost here, because realistically here, right? You could run Natasha here. I don't think there can realistically be any true free-to-play team in the game, meaning characters you get for absolutely free without doing any summonings or anything like that on the support side that are actually going to be viable for you in the game right now. Because these characters you can get through events, like you can get Gallagher through events, and that's what I would recommend here is putting Gallagher on the team. I think he's a very, very, very solid sustain character that can keep your team alive fairly good. He also has things in his kit that allow him to hit multiple enemies at one time, that being his ultimate move, and then he gets an additional attack after that. That's an extra stack you're adding on the enemy for Herta to get her stacks back up. If you're not familiar with the stacks that I'm talking about these interpretation stacks right here. Basically, what these interpretation stacks do is essentially give you extra damage for the Herta whenever you're hitting her an enhanced skill attack. So if you have an extra Erudition character on the team, that gives you an extra, basically doubles the damage she's able to do, right? And then she also allows your allies to stack this up on the enemy as well. While he doesn't help with getting her ult back up like Hua would be able to do, but overall, he does provide extra stacks to get her extra damage out. So in the end, not a bad option at all to run here. That's one of the reasons why I think she is super free-to-play friendly. Number two reason why I think she's super free-to-play friendly, guys. She gives one really big thing to your team, guys, and that is going to be increasing the crit damage of all your allies by 80%. She is basically being a buffer for your whole team. As long as you have another Erudition character on the team, you're basically giving that DPS free stats. This is only about a 13% loss in crit damage to what Sparkle's skill can give to one ally, but you also enhance them for it, of course. But this is very, very good crit damage that you're giving to your ally, and this is coming to you completely for free. Not only does this mean that you're getting extra damage out of your teammates, this also makes every single teammate or every single sub DPS that you would run with her easier to build as well. So she's not only making her build easier because she's giving it to herself, she's also making that sub DPS easier to build as well. So that means if you're running someone like Herta on the team, you can utilize using a crit rate chest now. You can utilize using gear that gives her more crit rate versus crit damage because she is getting free 80% crit damage. This would put any DPS at bare minimum, no crit damage subsets at all, 130% crit damage bare minimum. That is the base they are going to have. So with all of that being said, I do think all in all, she is going to be the best free-to-play DPS that you can possibly have on your account. Now you might say, you too, what about her damage though? If she can give all this stuff, but what if her damage is absolutely abysmal? Let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. Don't mind the marks. I use this chart for recording the Fei Zhao versus Herta video. If you haven't watched that video already, make sure to check that out to see which one is the better DPS. Guys, she gives herself a lot. We already talked about the crit damage increase. She also is going to be giving herself an 80% attack increase as well. This is just from using her ultimate move. Fucking massive. Secondly, guys, she gets ultimate damage increase. So not only are you getting that attack buff, you're going to be increasing the damage she's doing from that. She gets free energy, but this is the big thing. Damage dealt increase. Guys, this can be absolutely god level tiers of some damage dealt on the enemy at 42 stacks, guys. First of all, at 42 stacks, you're getting an extra 50% here. So this is already super massive in terms of like the damage you're doing here. Like overall, this would still be a really big buff, but At 42 stacks, it seems almost negligible if I'm being honest with you. Guys, on a single target using the enhanced skill attack, but there is a con with this. We'll talk about that after this section though. She gives herself up to a maximum of 672% increased damage dealt on the enemy on a single target. Fucking beyond, fucking massive. Plus an extra 336% increased damage dealt to adjacent targets. Plus 50% to both of these values if you have the 42 stacks. But herein lies the problems that I see with the Herta, right? Because while she does have a lot of multipliers, while she does do a lot of damage, she does have caveats behind how to do this damage. She also takes away from other aspects of the game that maybe you need on your account to make a certain team function, right? So I think the biggest thing that we can talk about here, there's actually two different things we can touch on here, right? Number one, that's going to be the stack she has, right? I think the stack that she has that she's putting on the enemy, the interpretation stack, this could be an inherent problem. Also, ult could be a problem as well. The easier one to explain here is actually going to be ult, guys, right? Because what does ult do, right? Ult basically allows you to do your E skill attack, right? So most of her damage is coming from this enhanced skill attack. I would say the big majority of her damage is coming from this enhanced skill attack, meaning if you cannot get the ult up effectively, you're not going to be doing as much damage. And considering her ult cost is at a massive 220, yeah, this is going to be a very hard thing to get if you're not playing her against the correct amount of enemies and the correct game modes and stuff like that, right? Now, the reason why I bring this up first, right? Obviously, easier to explain. Secondly, it does play into the stacks in some way, shape, or form, right? Because realistically, you need 42 stacks on one enemy to get the main majority of your damage out. So there is a couple different ways to actually get these stacks, guys. So let's go over the ways you can get these stacks. So number one way, we have Herta skill. Number two way, we have erudition character, including Herta herself in certain situations. And then finally, we have other characters that are on your team. So Herta skill will automatically be applying 5 stacks to the enemy, while your erudition character will be applying 4 stacks to the enemy, and every other character on your team will be applying 2 stacks to the enemy. And the reason why this is, guys, is actually both of her talents move kind of play in tandem with each other, just like the rest of her damage does, right? So first of all, from aloof honesty, guys, you're going to be getting 1 stack of interpretation whenever an ally target attacks, so that's free 1 stack right there. Secondly, guys, from her other bonus ability here, you'll be getting more stacks based off this as well. You basically get 1 stack for completely free, and this is going to be putting that interpretation stack on the target with the highest amount of interpretation stacks that have been hit with the attack. So if it's a single target attack, then that's going to be free to that one ally, whereas if you hit multiple enemies, you're picking 1 and then putting it on there. Then you get additional stacks for erudition characters for 2 extra stacks as well. That's why our number here is 4 for the erudition stacks, and then obviously Herta's skill herself gives her 1 free one too. So if you were to use a basic attack with Herta, you get 4 stacks here. If you use any attack with any of your other erudition characters, whether it's basic or skill, you're going to be getting 4 stacks as well. So that being said, I think anything less than 2 enemies on the field, if you have less than 2 enemies on the field, I think this will be an extremely bad situation for her. And the reason I say that is because you cannot generate as many of these stacks that you need to, first of all, get the stacks you need to do the big amounts of damage you need to do, because realistically, you do want to be getting 42 stacks. They were able to get the big damage number we talked about earlier with this 42 stacks equals this, but also the extra 50% you're getting here as well. On top of this, guys, one big thing her ult does, it hits all of these enemies here, obviously, but what it's also going to be doing is taking a stack here, putting it here, taking another stack here, putting it here, taking a couple stacks here, putting it here, right? So at the end of the day, you would end up with around this right here, around 8 stacks on your elite level target, and then obviously you would have 1 stack on these allies. If it's distributed in a perfect scenario, overall, you can double your stacks with the ultimate move by hitting every single enemy on the field. The more enemies you have on the field means the more stacks you generate. Also, the more stacks you have, that means the more energy you regenerate as well. So that is going to play into the ultimate move here. The more energy you have, the more likely chance you have of getting your ultimate move, which means the more likely chance you have of getting to your enhanced skill. What your enhanced skill will be doing is taking this stack right here, this number right here, this 42 right here, and then doing damage based off of this number here. So it all does coincide with each other, right? It depends on the amount of enemies you have on the field. Your DPS output will be slower the less enemies you have on the field. So this makes her really good for enemies like the bug boss, right? But he keeps spawning in the people beside him, right? And that'll make her really good there. But I think where the big problem comes in at is with enemies like Svarog, like enemies like the meme zone, right? With enemies like Stellaron Hunter Sam. Now the meme zone does summon little things when he absorbs your enemies, and maybe you get stacks from that and then transfer them to the main target when they disappear, I guess. But these are some of the enemies, Kafka, right? Are enemies that only necessarily have themselves on the field, so this is only 1 target you can really hit. Japard is the same way. Even someone like Adventurine, right? These are all enemies that only have 1 enemy on the field at all times, really, and it's going to be very hard to get a good amount of damage out on the enemies just because of the fact that you have to build up stacks on that 1 target. And yes, I get that these enemies don't have that type, right? But that doesn't mean they cannot release an enemy with a weakness type 2 ice, right? That counters her in that way as well. So that's really the big downside that I think a lot of people need to realize, because I know people have been seeing the leaks, they've been seeing the huge damage numbers. I'm sure you've seen stuff from the people that have been playing early access with her insane amount of damage that she's able to do. She really does lack in a lot of single target scenarios, and that's where I think Fei Zhao is better for. Watch that video if you do want to see my analysis on Fei Zhao versus the Herta, because I do feel like that is the one big caveat with her, is if you don't get her in situations with at least 3 enemies on the field, I do think she is going to suffer. Now, I don't even want to say 2 enemies. Like, 2 enemies I think is stretching it. 3 enemies that I think is where you need to be at and have a decently consistent damage output. So to wrap the damage notion up here, right? Like, everything is derived from ult, basically. That's like, sure, you have your stacks. That inherently gives you damage overall, right? Ult is everything, and her having a 220 energy cost, that is going to be the biggest fucking thorn in your side. You probably do want to run an energy regen rope there. I'm not going to lie to you guys. But yeah, this is her biggest thorn in your side. Now I want to talk about the other thing that might cuck you, and that's going to be this character right here, MC. Now, this only applies to a select number of players, including myself. This actually does apply to myself in some way, shape, or form, right? I have a lot of I have Rop on my account. I have Firefly on my account. I don't have Boot Hill on my account, but the only super breaker I have that can make them work is Harmony MC. Now, luckily for me, I've been playing this game for a while. I have a lot of different teams built up, right? That means I have the ability to pivot to another team, but you might not have that ability. And if you didn't pull for Ling Shaw, you are probably not going to be able to use any of your break teams, or effectively at that. So with that being said, this is actually kind of a cuck in disguise, because that would mean you would then need to pull for a premium support unit, which, by the way, do recommend pull for Ruan Mei, pull for Robin. I do recommend pulling for those characters. That is one big caveat that you can actually run into of you not being able to run one of your teams. Maybe break was one of your teams. You wanted this to be your second team. That would mean you do need to pull Ling Shaw right now. Go ahead and pull her, because if you don't have Robin, you don't have any other support, it's going to be kind of rough running her with getting buffs up and stuff like that as well. So do want to let that be known as well. So all in all, guys, is Herta worth your summons? Is Herta worth pulling for in your account? I do think that Herta is worth it for your account, though I do want to say, I do want to bring this up. Do I think you can clear content without the Herta? Absolutely. I think with the niche she fits in, I think she plays very well in Apocalyptic Shadow. I do think she plays well in the majority of Memory of Chaos. And I do think she plays really, really well in things like Pure Fiction as well. So I do think she hits every single game mode to call for that. But if you're already in a situation where you're able to beat all the content in the game with the DPS you currently have in the game, and maybe you're just struggling with Pure Fiction, I don't think you should pull if you're just struggling with Pure Fiction. I think Herta is a great option. I really don't think this is a must-have unit. Where I think this is going to be really good for people's accounts is especially new and free-to-play players, just because her team is so free-to-play friendly, and just overall, she is a super free-to-play friendly unit. I do think she will be top of the meta. I still don't think she's a must-pull, because let's be honest, with the trend that we've had nowadays with DPS, I think she's going to get power crept in probably 6 months anyway. So do you pull for her and use her for the next 6 months? Or do you just wait for that next best DPS to come out that's probably going to come in the next 2 to 3 months, right? So that's my thought process on it. I don't think you necessarily have to pull for her. Do I think she's a good pull for your account? Yeah, I do think she does cover a lot of bases, especially for those really casual players, a lot of those free-to-play players. She offers a lot of free stats. She offers a lot of easy clears. And I do think for that notion that I think she could be a pull for your account. Overall, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. What did you think? Are you pulling for Madam the Herta? Or are you just going to stick with your Herta? I don't know. Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. Are you going to be pulling for Agalia in the second half of this update? Let me know in the comment section down below, guys. That's going to do it, though. See you in the next one, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye-bye. See you later.